An Iraqi MiG and knock out an armored column. And in Washington, tight security tonight for the President's State of the Union speech.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, America at war.
Good evening. As we approach the end of week 2 of Operation Desert Storm, the war remains mostly a one-way street, with the United States and its allies carrying the battle night and day to Iraq and Kuwait, while Saddam Hussein talks boldly but barely fights back so far. Tonight, NBC's Arthur Kent is in Saudi Arabia with details of a dramatic Allied airstrike, and Fred Francis at the Pentagon on the Iran angle. Arthur, we begin with you.
Tom, an Iraqi tank column was smashed by Marine Harrier attack planes just last night, just north of Saudi Arabia's border with Kuwait. Now, Pentagon sources tell us the Iraqis were trying to creep across the Saudi border to attack Allied forces when they were intercepted. 24 tanks and other armored vehicles were destroyed, Allied troops, and at least one reporter reported seeing flames rising after the attack. And elsewhere in the Gulf today, other successes by Allied forces.
The U.S. Navy says that A-6 intruders like these knocked out 2 Iraqi Silkworm missile batteries today. The missiles at Fa are said to have been targeted at Allied ships in the Persian Gulf. Over Iraq and Kuwait as well, Allied aircraft like these Marine Fa-18 Hornets are also flying hard. Fatigue among air and ground crew is becoming more marked now, but pilots say the missions are anything but routine.
I'm scared every time I go up there. I know they're going to be shooting at me, but I know I have a job to do.
Hours later, a safe return. On this mission, little resistance.
Every time I get back here safely, it feels good.
These Marine pilots are concentrating on Saddam Hussein's elite army units.
Yeah, we're bombing Republican Guard planes up in northwestern Kuwait. Our intent is not to go up there to dismay anybody. Our intent is to go up there and kill them.
The pilots are targeting tanks, troop concentrations, and command centers. Anything, they say, that might threaten U.S. and Allied ground forces. They are scoring solid hits, they say, but admit they don't know exactly how much damage they are doing.
Now, while Allied air crews continue to pound Saddam Hussein's army, Saudi, American, and British naval helicopters struck out at 7 Iraqi patrol boats in the Gulf today. So anti-Iraqi forces are racking up successes, but so far no one's predicting just when that might add up to victory. Tom?
Thank you, Arthur Kent in Saudi Arabia tonight. And Pentagon officials now think that they do have some of the answers on the flight of almost 100 Iraqi planes to Iran, about a third of them warplanes. NBC's Fred Francis has been following that story at the Pentagon. He's there now. Fred?
Tom, the Pentagon has finally decided, it's given its view on why Iraq's premier combat airplanes fled the war to Iran. But it isn't sure why Iran agreed to give the jets safe haven. Military sources tell NBC News that early last week, Iraq began losing large numbers of aircraft it thought were safely sheltered by heavily constructed bunkers of concrete, sand, and steel. That was confirmed today by Lieutenant General Thomas Kelly.
Our program of bombing airfields was turning out to be successful. It's my belief that originally the Iraqis may have believed that the aircraft shelters would protect their first-line aircraft in Iraq, and they found out that that was not the case, that we are bombing the aircraft shelters and destroying the aircraft inside.
Pentagon sources say F-111 bombers and stealth fighters led the systematic attack on each hardened aircraft bunker. The mission was expected to last weeks. But the Air Force learned early that precise use of 2,000-pound laser-guided bombs could pierce the shelters and destroy the aircraft inside. The early results on both the above-ground hardened shelters and the large underground bunkers encouraged the Air Force to step up the attacks and apparently force the Iraqis to flee to Iran.
And I don't know whether Hussein ordered it. I don't know whether it was something that the Iraqi Air Force decided they wanted to do. I don't know what the discussions have been between Iraq and Iran. I simply don't know. I do know that their combat forces are electing to leave the field, and that is, in my view, a sign of weakness.
Iraq has also tried to save its long-range Su-24 bombers, but the Pentagon said today only some had escaped to Iran. And while survival is the reason behind the exodus, no one is sure what's in it for Iran's leaders. Today, Iran promised once again it had grounded the Iraqi aircraft.
Clearly, Iran is the winner no matter what happens. It can decide to keep the planes if it chooses, or it can demand a handsome storage fee. Tom?
Thank you, Fred.